If you've watched my previous videos on Dragon Age Inquisition, you might have received the mistaken impression that I just simply don't like the game, and that I just think it's a piece of shit. That's actually not what I think or feel. I think it's actually a good game. I enjoy it. It's just when you have the weight of experience and years. I mean, I've been gaming for well over 20 years. Well, if you even 25 if you count the Nintendo system of the 80s. When you've been gaming for that long, when you've played previous titles of the same franchise and titles of similar bent, role-playing games have always been my bread and butter more than any other genre, although I've played and delved into others. It's hard to simply give Dragon Age Inquisition a free pass with regards to its deficits. But nevertheless, I want to talk about the things that I do like about the game in this video. Most of them, if not all of them, have to do with lore. The game is really lore heavy, and one thing it's done really well is open up new doors to questions of lore, as well as perhaps answer a few. And the game did a relatively good job of that, as well as other things that are sort of distantly related to lore. One thing I really enjoy about the game is its racial reference capacity. It's chock full of references to little things. If you're a Carta dwarf, there's a whole little mini story involved there. There are war table missions. There are passive mentions of this. For example, if you're in Haven, you pass by the dwarf talking to the Inquisition soldier. There's a conversation about you. You know, one of your kind, member of the Carta. Josephine asks about you. Your Carta background is often mentioned when you dance with Lady Florian. There's a mention of your Carta background, so you really feel like you're playing that character. You're playing a dwarf with a Carta background. Now, whether you choose to rejoice in that or not, as a role-playing decision, maybe you're rejecting your Carta background, maybe you're not. That's up to you. Most recently, I've been playing, because there were a lot of bugs, I had to discontinue one of my playthroughs, an elf, and there's obviously a lot of elven reference throughout the game, but even in the beginning. And I've watched Kunari things, I haven't played myself yet, and same thing. I don't think I'll ever play a human in this game. Maybe I'm biased. I just find humans pretty boring. After all, I am a human in real life. Why would I want to do that in the game? But the racial reference is a really nice touch. I really enjoy that. You really feel like you're playing the race of your kind, and it doesn't have a huge impact, but when you accept the title of Inquisitor, you can say a dwarf will rule or will represent the Inquisition, or an elf, or a Kunari, and that's a really nice touch. One thing I liked as well was, for the most part, not entirely, the implementation of the specializations. That is, the fact that there are quests involved. It's not just a question of, okay, I've reached level 11 or 12, and now I can choose a spec. Let's go for it. The actual finding of stuff was annoying. I mean, I think it's enough to have a quest, but the fact that you have to basically Google locations for specialization components like the quill, spine, intestines, and what have you. That's a bit irritating. I don't know why BioWare did that, because they thought maybe it's cool and it shouldn't be marked on the map. But then again, why do that? Why not mark specialization objects or quest objects with regards to specialization if everything else has a marker? It seems to be a bit odd, to say the least, and there's a lack of continuity. But nonetheless, I still like the specializations. I love how they're actually mentioned on occasion. I think there are basically two mentions overall for each specialization, depending on which one you take. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen the Templar there too. There's one for Cullen, one for Dorian. Same thing with Artificer, Assassin, and so on. That's a really nice touch. It makes you feel like you're actually the profession that you've chosen, the specialization that you've chosen. That was pretty well done. And as I said, most of it is just the overall lore, the overarching lore. It seems like the events of Thetis, the things we saw in the game are really coming to the fore now. Everything is accelerating. I wish we'd found out more about Corypheus and the details, but hopefully that'll be resolved or revealed in future DLC or titles. I still have a smidgen of hope that BioWare can pull off an amazing DLC. I think of Lair of the Shadow Broker, which is the best part of Mass Effect 2, hands down, in my opinion. Some excellent action, nice story. It's overall really well done, I think, and it just stands in comparison to things like Overlord, which was okay, and even as much as I liked aspects of Mass Effect 2, there are issues with the plot, but it's good. You know, Lair of Shadow Broker is good stuff, and it's something to always remain in my memory, I think. And who's to say BioWare couldn't do that for DLC for Dragon Age Inquisition? Dragon Age Inquisition, obviously, this in my opinion, is overall pretty lackluster. It doesn't draw you in. I mentioned Dark Grit. Maybe I should have mentioned it lacks the feeling of the epic. It does not feel epic at all. It just feels like a bunch of things you're doing, tasks, chores. I didn't really have that feeling playing Origins. And I think there's an unconscious aspect to all of this, ladies and gentlemen. I think those of us who've gamed through the years, when you've done 6, 7, 8 playthroughs of a role-playing game, there's a certain ineffable quality to it, right? You can't even name what it is, but there's obviously something about the game that's drawing you in, and obviously something about the game that is pulling you into its story and the events, and even if the grinding is part of it. Never once have I had that feeling of Dragon Age Inquisition. It might be because I've gotten older, it might not be, but the strongest point of the Dragon Age Inquisition game is the lore, the things that are mentioned, the codices that you can read. There are many codices. I haven't read them all by any means. I mean, sometimes I'm just too lazy about it. But there's a lot of information to be gained. It's an interesting twist with Solus, the revelations of Flemeth, the revelations of what the Dalish elves actually are, the fact that they used to practice slavery and all these other things. That the Dalish elves really got it wrong, and that they've been piecing things together incorrectly. And interesting references such as, the elves are not his people, but the other kinds of elves are, with reference to Solus. Really, I think that's the strong point of the game, as well as the little things like racial references. The combat, I think I could do a separate video on that, so I'll save my time for a separate video for that one. But yeah, it's not a bad game. It's just when you line it up to other great RPGs of years bygone, it falls short. It lacks compulsion. It's not a compelling story, really. It's not a completely holy story. It's not. You don't get the whoa, what the fuck that is what happened in Mass Fuck Up 3. I think it's one of my subs said, or described it. But it's there's something missing. I still play it, but it's nothing to write home about in the distinct in the Hall of Fame of RPGs. It is not, put it that way. So those are my thoughts on what's good. It's the lore, those references, racial references, and the specializations. I should also mention, the approval system isn't bad. I like the fact that you can't please everyone, and it's invisible for them. I mean, I'm sure someone could crack that and see how the approval-disapproval meter actually works. But yeah, I mean, you can play the game in a way to just make everyone like you for the most part, but you have to actually consciously think about that. Whereas if you're just playing a certain role or character, it's difficult to do that because there are people with just widely varying viewpoints in your party. And yeah, that's another good thing. I think the game did pretty well. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I don't have a tremendous amount of positive things to say because I think the game just fell short in too many areas. But this is just my opinion, and I am a minority view, and those who share my opinions or similar ones are a minority view as well. Most of the reviews we've seen, game of the year and so on and so forth. So the masses, that is the majority, will always dictate where the wind blows. And how does Flemeth put it? I guess I'm paraphrasing. I am but a shadow in the sunlight. My opinion means nothing, but it is here for those to listen to, for those who are interested nonetheless. And if you share it, well, all the better. I think people need to maintain a critical mind with respect to everything in life. And gaming should be no exception here. So, as always, thanks for watching, and I appreciate your comments. They've been interesting to read and sometimes respond to. And yeah, enjoy the holiday time, I guess, if you still have that. So, everyone take care, and bye-bye.